Good morning, everyone, once again, for being part of today's session as we continue our local government conversations. We are on our 5th week of this 6-part series, and most of you have been working with this journey with us, and we truly appreciate, and we hope that it has been of value to you as it has been to us and all our stakeholders. My name is Emmanuel Ngobo. I will be facilitating this session, and as we had Ms. Peters in the past 2 weeks, and I'm sure everyone will agree she did a fantastic job. So thank you so much, Ms. Peters, as I know you are listening. And so this morning we're looking forward to a topic which is beyond the numbers, growing or strategies for growing local economies. And we have a very good municipal case study that will be presented, and then thereafter we'll have our expert views to share on what we presented, as well as other thoughts in relation to the subject matter. So we are trusting that will be of much benefit to everyone. And also, please be mindful, as we always indicate, we only have 2 hours, as much as we want to take all the questions and answer them in the comments, but we are still limited by the time. So do our level best that we do answer as much questions as they may arise. So please make use of the chat box at the bottom of your screens, as well as the Q&A option as we proceed with the session. So with those words, let me just quickly flight the intro slides as I normally do, and then I will hand over to our lead speaker. All right, so the conversations are proudly brought to you by the Municipal Edge, as well as Future Cities Africa, supported by SICFARO as well as SALGA. And our main theme for these conversations is reshaping the local government landscape, and we are looking at the road ahead. And the important thing as we go along is that we have to find sustainable solutions for our local government with all the challenges that exist. We are hoping that we are headed there. Also, what we do with all of these sessions, as you know, they are recorded. We then also disseminate and work now with the academic institutions in so far as the material and content for local government studies is concerned. We are now dealing with this session, 5th session, as indicated, beyond the numbers, and we're looking at these strategies for us to grow our local economies. And please, once again, do join us for our last one next week. It's going to be very much impactful, where we have National Treasury to share on unpacking the municipal budget. Our sponsor for this session and partner, which we appreciate very much, is the Leadership School of Business, which is pioneering business excellence. Thank you so much for enabling us to have this session of today. As everyone is aware, that we continue to do these sessions without charging anyone. Freely we have received and freely shall we give in terms of the knowledge and information that we have. On your screen, we have what the LSB is all about, a cutting-edge education and training service provider that works with higher education institutions to expand their reach through online as well as distance learning solutions. They've successfully completed a number of governance and capacity development programs that have assisted various stakeholders, both in the public as well as the private sector, to adequately train and equip the public servants. And they're also very much passionate about leading positive transformation and improving the performance that will enhance and further ensure sustainable service delivery for the communities of our Republic of South Africa. So once again, thank you so much to the Leadership School of Business. Today's lead speaker is Mr. Sikhumbuzo Hlongwane, the Executive Director of KwaDukuza Municipality, and then will be supported by the panelist, Mr. Neville Mackey, who has indicated that he is with us currently, but because of time constraints and other engagements that have now come through, he will actually send a representation from the Trade Investment KZN to be part of the discussions, but currently he is with us. He is the Chief Executive Officer. Also, we have Ms. Eimear Costigan, the Acting Head of Investment Promotion at WESGRO, which is the Cape Town, Western Cape and Western Cape Tourism, Trade and Investment. Also, we will be joined by Mr. Sandile Mahlaba from Microsoft, who will be touching on the the aspect of IT insofar as economic growth is concerned. So our session will look at the actual topic of Beyond the Numbers via the presentation of a case study, and then we'll have the panel views and then any discussions that will take effect thereon. So with those words, thank you once again to our lead speaker and presenter, and also the panelists that will be sharing their thoughts thereafter. At this time, I will be handing over to Mr. Sikhumbuzo Hlongwane, who will then take us through the lead presentation. And also, congratulations, Mr. Hlongwane. KwaDukuza local municipality recently received an award for being the cleanest city in the province of KZN. So it means that the municipality is doing quite well. So congratulations in that respect. Over to you. Thank you so much.
Yes, maybe as I just indicated, I work for local government. I have been here in KwaDukuza for the last 10 years as a head for economic development and planning. Just to give some background on myself, I have been a local economic development practitioner since 2001. I have worked for various municipalities, including an investment promotion agency. So I have been around in KwaDukuza in particular for the last 10 years as a Section 56 employee, head of department, for a department responsible for economic development, town planning, building control, climate change, and also tourism and LED. I'm just going to be quickly with our case study because obviously on my side, I've taken an approach based on the guidance I was given by Mr. Klassen on what is expected. If we could just move on slide, I know the disadvantage. Maybe basically just to give those who might not know KwaDukuza. KwaDukuza, we are just on the north of eThekwini municipality. We are strategically located between the two ports of Richards Bay and also eThekwini. We are just 15 minutes away from Kingshire Airport and Donnee Trade Port Special Economic Zone. So in certain instances, other people, they think that if you talk about Palito is part of eThekwini. I always want to emphasize in every platform that Palito is part of KwaDukuza municipality. Is thriving because of the municipality to continue to provide services, to continue to facilitate economic development and planning. So in most people, if people they make reference, even media or any other platforms, even if the perception that Palito is part of eThekwini. Palito is part of KwaDukuza. We've got also a Salt Rock and Zekwazi. Our municipalities, maybe just to say one of the key drivers for me in terms of economic development is that investors are not looking for municipalities that create the environment, but they also look around governance issues. KwaDukuza, we have obtained 11 conservative unqualified audit opinions. The latest one is a much improved one in terms of dealing with the key issue that we've been struggling with, which is linked to the PPP agreement that we did have, of which was declared as irregular expenditure. We have completed the PPP, but we have been doing that. In terms of financial sustainability, we have been part of the top 10 municipalities around the country that have been doing well, remaining financially stable, even in the post-COVID era. We are still stable. We are still collecting around 90% of our revenue. But also, what is critical just for somebody who have not been in this part of the world, we are the home of Kingshire. If you come to our CBD, stand at KwaDukuza, we've got a grave of Kingshire within the CBD. Also, we are the home of Shival Betuli, the first African Nobel laureate, is within Granville, our area. So we tend to also promote the heritage that we are having in terms of leaders. You can just move in the second slide. It's just an orientation. I think I've covered. I've put there in terms of population. We are the intermediary city. We've got close to 231 population. That is still based on the previous stats, but the estimates that we are having on our IDP is about 280,000 population that have grown over the years because of our development. Let's move to the other slide. We have defined our role. I always wanted to define our role in terms of economic development as a municipality. We have about 4 roles that we've defined ourselves. One is that we are the facilitator of development. It could be local economic development, but for the purpose of this, I wanted just to focus around investment facilitation. We see ourselves as a facilitator through our streamlined and faster development process by our development assessment committee. If you come to KwaDukuza, the project is classified as a catalytic project. We do have a speeded process through a one-stop committee which involves all departments, including the district municipality representative, where they'll come in one room, assess, it could be a business plan, a building plan, or it could be a town planning application. They'll be able to assess and provide comments, and then assist in terms of fast-tracking the project that we do. Also, we regard ourselves as a partner, as a municipality with investors. We don't see investors just as ratepayers. We tend to interact on an executive level. We've got a committee, which is called the Strategic Project Committee, which all the head of departments, they will then interact with big projects. We are coming through the municipality, so that the executive director, when there's any application that is coming through, then take interest and begin to provide comments. Those who are responsible for infrastructure will be aware as early on the initial stages of the project. So we allow investors to come through with concept. The same committee work also is a due diligence committee. Is made of a head of department, is co-chaired by myself or the chief operations officer of the municipality. So it's one of the instruments that we are having. And then once we work with you, we then become part of the process. If we've got bottlenecks in terms of either getting comments from Department of Transport in the province or Central, we then get involved on our side to try and unlock that. But also, if there's a possibility of getting finance, we have partnered in few projects to solicit funding from the DTI, for example. We've got 2 projects currently that have been funded through the critical infrastructure grant. One the municipalities remain applicant. Those are private development. We have received about 2 separate grants because we then get involved on that side. The other issue for us, we are just an enabler of development. For the financial incentive scheme around the rebate and in-kind, but we have changed over the years. When I joined the municipality, any developer, big development or residential or estate would get incentives. But in 2014, we took a stance to say most people will then come and develop, and people who will buy in within our area. They are using what do as a second home, which means somebody will be based in Joburg, come either during holidays or over the weekends, and they don't usually create jobs, permanent jobs in the post-construction. So we took a stance to refocus our incentive scheme to only industrial development and also commercial development, where there would be where we'll be able to create jobs. So we're doing that, but what we have done for us to enable the process have been around the trying to shorten our processes in terms of approvals, because an investor who come through KwaDukuza must have that comfort that if I'm putting a SPLUMA application, it will take less than 160 days on our side. In terms of my own performance contracts, most applications we have reduced to 90 days is what I'm measured on. And last one, we promote our destination as a separate destination. I will share with you the experience on that element. So as part of that, I wanted just to give a picture. What do the municipality in terms of statistics? We approve every year in the last 10 years an average of 2 billion worth of building plans. We also approve occupation certificate an average of 180. If you go to State SA, they track that information, they publish it every year around June. So if you can go to those reports, you could verify that. So it's one of the issues. So property development is a key sector for us. It has a direct impact in terms of the municipal sustainability and revenue sources. We have put the average of building plans that we have approved is about 8,300 and 4,600. We do have our own challenges, but we are proud of ourselves. In terms of the province, we are number 2 after eThekwini in terms of the building plans approvals. We don't compete with Umhlathuze or Msunduzi. Also around the country, we're at number 7. We don't compete with other metros, Nelson Mandela Metro, or even Umangaung. We don't compete with those metros. We compete with big metros in terms of how much we are doing in terms of development. But if you go to the next slide, for me, one of the issues that we wanted to address for us in terms of what is the impact of this investment, because sometimes we talk this about the rate base, the impact of this to our rate base or revenue base as a municipality. Our source of funding is this municipality KwaDukuza. We are responsible for electricity in electricity supply in our area. 95% of our area is under our control, is not under ESCOM. So we generate most of our revenue that fund the functioning of the municipality is about 45%. In this financial year is about 950 million, what is projected in our budget, but we do have our own challenges in terms of energy loss, technical and non-technical, but this is how well. But in terms of rates, which is a key for us, make our 23% of our rate base as a municipality, and then waste removal, building plan fees and town planning alone is around good percentage. But this is a key issue for us to say, as we push for this investment, is also along the way we give incentive. Previously, the municipality, because of rate rebate, it will take time. It was an 8-year window period for developers. We give them a holiday, to pay rates. For first 2 years will be 100%, and then go on the sliding scale until 8 years. So if you can give the financial rebate, you will then transfer the burden to the ratepayer. So that's why we took that position, and we have seen the growth of the income after we've said, because investors are happy. If you go to Panellists, they are happy that the municipality is able to provide services, able also to process their application. They're no longer looking for rate rebate, with the exception of manufacturing that we're trying to stimulate within the area. Yes, then the slide that will follow, I then took an approach to say I wanted to be practical with my presentation. I wanted just to take you to a case study, maybe just to indicate one of the strengths of this area. We have investors that we have worked with them for more than 15 years as a developers of estate, of real estate in our area, but also as manufacturers. I've just highlighted few of them for the company called Hestor Harness, that I'm going to make to work around case study for the IFA or test groups, who's a developer of Zimbabwe Princip. In 2020, we launched a new phase, Zimbabwe Lakes project, which is a 10-year project, around 5 billion investment. We did have huge development, as much as they are facing challenges right now, but they've been a key driver and also a partner of KwaDukuza in terms of unlocking development within their own. So I will be taking you through the case study. We move fast back to Dr. Ngobo on that one. I wanted to share the experience about Hestor. I have given the background. Hestor have been here since 1993. It's a company that relocated within our district. It was part of East Tebe industrial area, and then it's relocated to KwaDukuza because its major client, which is Toyota, they were having the certain requirement that they should be within the 30. It should be about 90 kilometers away from the FET, which is on the south of Durban. That's why they relocated. They've been part of us. Their business model, it's based on the supply components. It's one of the biggest, it's the biggest private sector employer in KwaDukuza. The old plant that I'm referring to, it's currently having about 2,300 people that are employed. Just for the benefits of the audience, the harness is a wiring that goes through all the cars. So as part of their business model, they go out and bid and tender for work with the automobile companies, and then they will get about 5-year contract for a certain model of vehicle produced by Toyota, then they will supply. And what is nice with this company is that it's one of the labor-intensive method of producing. They employ about 80% of their employee now is women, and 20% is men, because they use it's more of your, if you've got a background around knitting, it's easy to join the industry. That's why they've targeted that one. So I'm sharing the case study that we have done. We were approached by them. I think all of us were aware now. President launched a Silverton Ford plant last year. It's part of the presidential project. But in 2015, we started to work on the project with Hesto, where there was a contract. It's the global contract, a certain contract where they have to bid for 2022 fourth range. There's a fourth range that will be coming this year, produced in Silverton, Gauteng. The components will be coming from that. So we went through the process with them to bid for that, but Ford as a client wanted the plant to be in Silverton, because they were aware that there was a process of declaring Silverton as a special economic zone, which means they would come with more benefits instead of investors, but also they wanted their suppliers to be within one precinct. So when I also approached us, they said they would like to make their proposal to be competitive both for Ford and for their own boards. As a municipality, we then work with them, took an in-principle decision to compete, but Hesto did not get the contract in that year because they were competing. We were competing. One company that we were competing is an international company, but it did have presence in Nelson Mandela Metro. So there was a competition also on our side as a municipality now, where we're competing against City of Hlongwane and City of eThekwini. eThekwini, they do have a double trade port. When the process started, we did not have provincial government support. It was provincial government in terms of their strategy. They want to establish a new auto cluster in eThekwini around double trade port. So the municipality was on its own to fend off this competition of the SCZ, which they enjoy a number of tax-related incentives from national government, but we have to do that. Let's go to another page. We then started the process on our side. We put a proposition with Hesto. Hesto as a company was loyal to us because they've been with us for more than 20 years, providing service. It was stable, but we said our proposition that we want to be based on the goodwill that we have worked together with Hesto. We have a good relationship. The second one was that we've got strong skill base and a stable labor environment. Hesto is unionized, but I can tell you in the last 20 years, they've not have even a single work stoppage, with the exception of few national strikes, but in terms of the environment, it's just stable. The municipality then offered a land which is adjacent from Hesto and also red base. Even the current land that they've built, what I would refer in for this presentation as a Toyota plant, which is an old plant, we offered that land in 1993 and red base. We also gave them an assurance that we would classify the projects, the Catholic projects, that we enjoy this fast-track approach in terms of assessment of their application. But secondly, we said we are going to deal with the threat that is within KwaZulu-Natal of business for us. I think we've done very well around the area. We put that as a proposition. But there was one issue that was raised, that there's an issue of the business forum and it's rife in KwaZulu-Natal. So we are able to put as a part of the proposition for investment to say what we'll be doing as a municipality to ensure that the project is fast-tracked and is implemented without any disturbance. We then did that, but Hess was informed that because of the previous year, in 2018, they were told that they didn't get the contract, the company, global company, which for a branch in South Africa in Mandela Bay on the contract. But Hesto again was then requested in 2019 to submit quotation. I think there was challenges with their competitor who's based in Mandela Metro to go back again, put the similar process, but they wanted a clear commitment from the municipality now because they have to make through the process. We then came clear to say we're going to give our land on the 10% of current value, land value was around 9 million, and we gave them about 900,000. There was an arrangement that was previous. We've given land for free in other years. So there was also an objection from public. So we then have to come with clear process to say they're not going to get free, which they've accepted. And also we've given them 5-year rent rebate. And then we also agree on the process that I've touched on in terms of the fast tracking of the project. Then let's go to another page. The key issue for us here, when we're on the verge of getting this tender, the local company, the land were 2 land parcels. There was a land parcel that was owned by KwaDukuza Municipality, and there was a land parcel that was also owned by a private individual. Immediately when the Hesto received the confirmation that they've got contract, the owner of the private property changed the price of their land. It was about 6 million. It grew to 30 million within a week after we've received a confirmation. The deal was off. The board of Hesto and Meta Group, they say it's unethical. They were not going to do that. We then began on our side before lockdown, and then we worked through with the Transnet. We approached Transnet. We did have land within KwaDukuza. Transnet, they told us to say they want to deal directly with Hesto. They then put the tender during the lockdown. When it was lockdown, the first hard lockdown in April, there was an advert of Transnet of their land. They have to follow their procurement process. We went through that process. We put all the support that we're supposed to get. But in May 5, we received information that the land was not approved. So the deal was off. We then approached directly the Premier, and then Premier delegated the CEO of Trade and Investment Kwazulu-Natal to assist us with unlocking the land of Transnet. We did have various meetings with the CEO of Transnet Freight and Transnet Rail and the CEO itself. We also roped in the Office of the President, the Economic Advisor of the President, and also DTI, former DG, who then assisted to that. But we did have a pressure that we're working on that around June, where Ford Global wanted to get a confirmation by August 11 that the project will be on by July 9 that the land is secured and the project is on the ground. We're then able, with the assistance of taking particular CEO, with his intervention and support, to get Transnet to be persuaded to change, to review their decision, to consider that, and the lease was done. So there was a good issue. I'm trying to emphasize that as much we're doing that. But what I found very interesting from Trade and Investment Kwazulu-Natal was the emphasis from the CEO to say our mandate is to ensure that we get investment spread throughout the province. We're going to support it, and our focus is to ensure that the projects remain in KwaDukuza, it doesn't go to Trade and Investment Kwazulu-Natal, because I was reluctant to work with them because of the provincial policy decision, but I was getting that assurance throughout the process from Uneven, who was part of one of the panelists. Then we were able to deliver the project. Maybe just to continue the next slide, the project itself, then it's ongoing, we've done that. Then I wanted us to deal with the process of around ease of doing business. We have been working around ease of doing business as part of the project we're doing. Our focus was to do an assessment around building permits, application and commercial dispute. Ease of doing business is being done in South Africa to all the metros, but we're lucky to have a program called Vutela LED, where that presentation was that program was run here. As part of this process, we have been working in reforms with the private sector of our own processes in terms of building plans and town planning approvals, as part of trying to create this enabling environment. As part of the project, the project have hit a good positive result, which is a project itself. But currently we are starting a new project which was funded by National Treasury. If we can go to the next slide. This is just what the project that we have done in terms of the new voucher program interventions. We have changed in terms of building plans that are more than 500 square meters. Instead of 60 days, we're making decisions within 20 days. Building plans that are less than 500 square meters, 24, and occupation certificates were moved to 18. And so there's been a huge shift of what average time that is taken to process application. Previous, it was more than if you are supposed to do that. But the project that we are doing is ease of doing business, which is one of the digital systems that we are doing. We have received a grant from the National Treasury of 22 million. The project we've just kickstarted it in December. We've awarded the service provider. But the main purpose of this project is to try to make sure that we digitalize all our processes, from building plan application, occupation certificate, zoning. We're also bringing finance rights clearing certificates, a business license application in informal trading. It's a project we've started that is ongoing, but is informed also by the 5 years of engaging of private sector in terms of processes that need to be done. And we're hoping that we'll be able to move and try to do that. Let's go to the last slide. What we in terms of the outcomes that we are expecting from this project is that ensuring that all our processes move to digital platforms. Currently, if you come to those more physical, ensure that applicant can use the application. One of the things of the features of the system that we want to do is that if I'm an applicant in architecture and also the project owner, which is an investor, I should be able to track each and every step of any application within the organization. Because in most cases, you find people, architects who are employed, they will mislead their investors to say the municipality is dealing with the process. So this system will make everybody to be accountable. The municipality staff, architects, and it will make it to be transparent. But also in terms of one of the key issues for us, this will improve revenue collection and contribute to data cleansing. In certain instances, you'll find a property have been upgraded to find our finance in terms of our billing or zoning is not done correct. In certain instances, also the district itself, we've done the exercise with the districts around revenue, the data cleansing. You find that somebody's been charged by the district water account, but if you come in the property, there's no electricity account for the municipality. But this project will then contribute toward that process. It's an ongoing project. But also for us during disaster, during the lockdowns, we've lagged as a municipality. We're not ready. Our discovery plans were not ready to do a lot of our processes outside the system, but we're able to become creative with few limited resources to be able to support property industry. So this is our experience as a municipality that I wanted to share with the team that is here. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate that. We've actually had a lot of theory, in the past. I'm so glad that you're coming up with this, practice by KwaDukuza local municipality as well as the results thereof, because we can talk theories of how to stimulate growth in our local municipalities or provinces. But then at some point in time, it's like the economist, you're always talking of statistics that are in the future, but what about now? Because people need what they need right now, especially when you look at some of the landscape of our municipalities. So thank you for sharing those insights. And importantly, you touch on areas which leadership came and was involved for a provincial perspective, as well as adherence to legislation, the prescripts that are there, which becomes very, very important because you don't want to be rushing some processes, but at the expense of legislation, because we have to ensure that you're responsible and accountable to our respective communities. So thank you so much, Mr. Hlongwane, the Executive Director of KwaDukuza Local Municipalities. Well articulated, sir, so we truly appreciate that. So before I bring in Mr. Neville, I'm not sure if he's still with us. He had indicated he might be challenged by time, but I'm going to be bringing him in if he's around. If not, he had indicated a representative from TIKZN will come through in his stead. Before you do come through, ma'am, I just want to pull out one poll in for 2 minutes or so, won't be that long. Come in, just for us to put up some options. If you can just do so, Mr. Klassen, quickly. our first poll that we just want to pose to everyone as we proceed. In your view, what should be the main priority of municipalities be in terms of LED approaches? What should be the main priority of municipalities? Firstly, the triple Ps, or perhaps it should be small businesses approach, which is more geared toward innovation, private investment, as well as job creation. Regional approaches, which is leveraging the resources of surrounding areas, or the other one is a sector cluster approach, which is supporting the most promising sectors by bringing together business, education, NGOs, and so on and so forth. But remember, also sector cluster approach talks to those who are already in business and flourishing, could then be at the expense of others that needs to be brought in. So think carefully. I know that everyone is leaning towards all of the above, but you just want to make sure that you get this correct. It's more like while you're back in school, the all of the above always used to be one of the easiest answers to go for. So think carefully. I'll just give you 30 seconds to select your option, and then I will end the poll. So far, there's others leaning towards more business approach as an LED approach towards stimulating growth in our local municipalities, and 57% so far is all of the above, and that's where we seem to be heading towards. In the next 15 minutes, I will then end today's poll. Thank you so much for all those who are participating. We appreciate. Let me just end the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So the results that we have is 58% of all of the above, as well as 15% for small business focus, to make sure that we can grow the SMEs in our local areas, so to stimulate LED within our local area. So thank you so much, everyone, in that regard. I will now be bringing in Neville, or the representative of the CEO of TIKZN, just to come through and then share the thoughts as well as per what has been presented by Mr. Sikhumbuzo Hlongwane. You can just introduce yourself, ma'am, and then you can just share your views in that regard. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nqobo. My name is Donnee Kruger. I head up international relations and business development for Trade and Investment Kwazulu-Natal. So I'm actually based in Gauteng. People often ask why we have an office in Gauteng, but it's really to kind of have the first contact with investors, also to leverage support from public and private institutions and interact with clients. Mrs. Hlongwane, thank you very much for the great presentation. I think what struck me about it is the very practical things that affect investors, things like land and leases, and just if you look at a study that was actually forwarded to us today by Salga on what is important in municipalities for attracting investment. It talks around service delivery, and I think just an approach to service investors. So my first thought around it is that soft issues are incredibly important. Actually, just knowing the businesses in your area, visiting them from time to time, having a forum together with your business, with non-governmental organizations, the interaction between public and private sector to facilitate dialogue, to know what are the issues, and then to address them as efficiently as possible. I think what is clear for me from this study that Salga gave out recently also shows, we all know what the issues are. Everyone talks about, investment into infrastructure by public sector, the fact that there needs to be perhaps incentives, how important is that for an investor or not? The fact that there is, service delivery in terms of, the ease of doing business, in terms of registering permits, getting access to electricity. I think those factors are majorly important, but I think it's about knowing what the issues are and just facilitating dialogue to address them. The example of Esther, I think, is a brilliant one. We often, get inquiries from our investors in terms of what are local municipal matters. So things like access to electricity and basic service delivery to them, I think, are massively important in the whole attraction of investment and the facilitation of foreign direct investment. So I think if I had to mention 4 important factors, I think cutting red tape and, creating ease of doing business by, looking at things like using, electronic applications to ease the, the red tape around that. Also, the facilitation of dialogue. Your definition of local economic development is such as, where public sector, private sector, and business get together to facilitate economic growth and economic development in that area. So the ways we do it is through facilitation of dialogue. I think those soft issues actually make or break the investment. And then also looking at, what are the tools that we have available. Yesterday we hosted, it was interesting, dialogue, which is between public and private sector in Cape Town, where we were marketing what KwaZulu-Natal has to offer as an investment destination or a trade destination. And it was really interesting talking to entrepreneurs that have come up with applications or electronic apps for graduates in an area to register themselves electronically, and they match them with what the jobs are that are advertised, and they're actually doing it as a tender for the city of Cape Town, for example. So they've managed to cut the application process for learnerships and things by 6 weeks, and they're able to do appointments within 48 hours. So I think the use of technology, we can really leapfrog in terms of creating opportunities for economic development in our areas by using whatever innovations are available from entrepreneurs in our area to also assist in that mandate of service delivery. So yeah, I think using technology, also servicing through formal structures where you can leverage dialogue between public and private sector, and then just also using what we call trade and investment KwaZulu-Natal. Mr. Hlongwane mentioned, we assisted the facilitation with Transnet in terms of sites. We have what we call a one-stop shop, which is a facility to provide you with business and regulatory information, help you with the relevant approvals. As an agency, we work with the municipalities in providing market entry data on specific sectors and value chains. I think finding real estate, knowing what property is available in your municipality is very important, what land can be accessed, whether it be private or public, so that if there's an investor inquiry, you can provide an immediate overview of what land is available in terms of sites. I think the facilitation of funding, knowing what funding and what packages and incentives are available to investors, making that available is important. And as an agency, we've recently also embarked on what we call our business support fund, where we work with the IDC with existing entrepreneurs that were hit by COVID, because a lot of the businesses were really hard. Where we've identified in different areas to also assist, as Mr. Hlongwane said, the spread of economic activity within the province. So also providing funding structures. And then I think what is very important is mentorship programs. There are many international mentorship programs for capacity building for municipalities. I think knowing what that is, tapping into that. And also then for entrepreneurs, there are a number of programs that we've implemented that we've been running for about 4 years with international partners. Things like there's a program called the PUM program with the Netherlands, or the Senior Expert in Service with the German Chamber, where retired experts in specific fields come out and assist SMEs in the improvement of their competitiveness in business. And that has been a very successful program. So I think it's about marketing those programs that are available within the municipalities as the municipality and as the investment promotion agency for the province, getting companies to tap into that. And then I think you've already mentioned a lot in the poll as well. Do you look at node? It's got to be an integrated planning approach. We're guided very much by the new growth path, by the LED strategy, by the integrated development planning, drawing that together. So kind of having a joint vision from a national, provincial, and local structure in terms of, what are the priorities, what are the projects we can push, jointly marketing them, and then servicing the investors once they are there, and also attracting the sectors that we want. But I think, for that, whilst that's an integrated approach, there needs to be a political push for those sectors as well. We can also create new sectors. If you look at priorities at the moment in terms of the world. I mean, things like vaccine centers, pharmaceuticals, food and beverage. Those are hot sectors at the moment. And also assisting companies, if you look at global megatrends or the growth trajectories for businesses, getting them to reshore some of their services, looking at the regional opportunity. Because when people invest, they don't just look at a region, they look at an entire market. So if you look at the regional opportunity, getting them to invest, but then also getting them to export from your location. I think reshoring, some of the services, replicating whatever they're doing in different areas as well, and then also diversifying within your area. I think those are some of the major thoughts. So I think a lot of interaction between non-governmental organizations, public and private, creating that dialogue. I think creating funding structures, assisting with real estate options, assisting with the business and regulatory environment, and just the overall support. Those are my kind of major thoughts from what I picked up from Mrs. Hlongwane's talk. But I think that's important. I think we've all seen that just keeping the businesses that we have and getting them to expand is responsible for more than 50% of reinvestment in an area. So very important. Thank you.
No, thank you. I just want to get it correct. It's Donna Kruger, am I correct?
Dr. Ngcobo, it's Donnee, yes. Thank you.
Donnee, all right. Donnee, thank you so much, Donnee, for stepping in there for Mr. Neville. I just want to now bring in Eimear, who's also going to come through with views. But Mr. Hlongwane, if you can also just look at the chat or the Q&A, there are some questions that have been posed, I think more specifically for you. I'll give you a chance after Eimear to then just come through and answer some of those questions that have been posed. It looks like you've triggered a very good discussion in terms of your presentation. So I'm trusting that you'll then be able just to come through and then share more insight in what has been posed in that regard. So Eimear, over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Doctor. I guess it's a bittersweet pill when you are the final panelist to comment, in the sense that I had the pleasure of hearing some very interesting thoughts and the example of Mr. Hlongwane, but interesting thoughts from my counterpart from TKZN. Now the challenge is to not repeat everybody else, right? In terms of what I have to say, and I think we are singing from the same hymn sheet in a number of ways, and the case study that we walked through, I found myself nodding vigorously and saying yes, because so much of what was spoken about in relation to KwaDukuza municipality is the kind of thing we'd love to see more and more of in connection with municipalities. In terms of how they link to investors, how they support their journey. And I think that's maybe a helpful place to start. So I mean, WESGRO, being the official trade and investment agency for the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape, and we really believe that municipalities are critical for economic growth and play a huge role in terms of the well-being of their citizens. They also play a really key and critical role in investors' journeys. And maybe the reason I'm kind of talking about journey so much is over the course of the past 18 months, WESGRO has been working closely with World Bank Group. And a lot of that work focuses on kind of as a fundamental basis, what are the key stages of the investor life cycle, and identifying where we are strong and where there are gaps or areas for development that we need to work on. And I think that's maybe also a helpful model for municipalities to consider too, because they have a key role to play at each of those stages. But maybe to step back a little bit and first kind of, acknowledge the bad news, which is that global FDI flows fell by 35% in 2020. And in fact, there was a 62% decline in greenfield foreign direct investment for Africa. And we do believe, and there is kind of evidence that we can observe that the upturn is coming. But the question is, are we ready for that upturn? And is this an opportunity to kind of do some introspection and focus on having an investor ready product as that upturn develops, I guess. So yeah, as I said, we look at the different stages of the life cycle. The first being attraction, and that's the first point that was mentioned in terms of the themes that we're talking about today. So I think from a municipality point of view, really understanding your own kind of value proposition is key. And all the better if that can align with the provincial strategy in terms of priority sectors and that sort of thing. Also then, if your product isn't investor ready, so if you kind of think of your location or investment destination as a product, you know, you can kind of analyze what are the elements that are strong and are appealing to investors, and where do you need to do a little bit more work, and that might be things like skills, it might be things like broadband penetration, and in many cases it'll be to do with the processes that those investors are going to have to engage in, you know, in their interactions with the municipality. So loved, you know, the examples in the case study of digitizing processes and making them as streamlined as possible. And obviously that is just a phenomenally key area. I can refer to a global investment competitiveness report that took place in 2019 and 2020, where investors told the surveyors what did they think were the most important services that investment promotion agencies could offer. So this is kind of telling us as WESGRO and TKZN what you know, what our clients value, but I think it's also helpful information for municipalities to understand where are investors hitting up against roadblocks. And so what they identified was efforts to improve business environment in the country. So it's I guess that kind of advocacy and policy role, as much as the kind of more short-term interventions, assistance in setting up. So that can be a huge stumbling block, where, you know, we lose investors before they even really get started in country. And then assistance with operational issues and grievances, again, many of which can lead back to the municipality that they're operating in. So I think those are helpful kind of pointers in terms of where to direct our energy and attention. The second phase of the life cycle that we talk about, Doctor, is the entry and establishment side. And then again, it's about those processes that a municipality requires investors to engage in. How do we support investors on that journey? And with that, we need to consider private sector timelines as well. So I think you spoke earlier about it being important that things are done in the right way and that, you know, due process is considered. But we also have to be cognizant of how timelines work with investors. And we had a conversation as WESGRO earlier in the week with a very significant investor and employer in Cape Town. And they said the two words we want to leave you with is speed matters. And I almost think that needs to be, you know, written above our desks as a constant daily reminder. And we can apply that to so many things, right? We can apply that to the speed of our broadband. We can apply that to the speed of our processes in terms of getting your submissions made, but also the turnaround time in terms of decisions. Investors can be impatient, and particularly when they feel they have a range of investment destination options. You know, it's really the ease of doing business. We've repeated that term a number of times on this discussion, but the ease of doing business really matters. And if they feel that they can do that easier elsewhere, you know, often their investment can be mobile, and we need to recognize that. Then the next stage of the cycle would be retention and expansion. And I think my counterpart, Donnee, made the case very clearly at the end around that much of our reinvestment, or much of our investment, I should say, is in fact reinvestment. So knowing our installed base of businesses as municipalities is phenomenally important, and building that relationship with them and understanding what are their plans for growth and expansion and how can we support them. And that kind of ticks the boxes for local economic development, for inclusive economic growth. And I think I loved how on Dr. Hlongwane's, I'm not sure which slide it was now, but he had talked about considering your investors enablers. And I think that's part of it as well, like building this long-term relationship with your installed base of companies and considering them real enablers of what it is you're trying to achieve as a municipality. Yeah, and the figures around, the percentage of investment that is in fact reinvestment from your existing companies. I've seen various ones that run from 45 to 60%, and Donnee also felt that it was over 50%. And for us as WESGRO, that's something that we are really taking to heart at the moment in terms of renewing, I guess, our commitment to the existing companies in our province, and really exploring what are the services that make a difference for them, because retaining the jobs that they've created is so important, and recognizing the opportunity to add to those jobs is obviously really key as well. And then the final stage that we talked about in this investor life cycle with the World Bank is linkages and spillovers, and that's where we're looking at strategic opportunities that benefit both the investor and the domestic economy. So it might be things like looking at the development of a supply chain, and this came into Mr. Hlongwane's presentation as well, that is there an opportunity to build a whole supply chain around your major investor, and I think that's a really exciting kind of element of the life cycle that we need to consider, and we need to kind of, as partners, being the IPAs and the investment promotion agencies and the municipalities, that we need to do some collective thinking around how best to approach that. Yeah, do I have a little more time? I feel like I may have gone on a bit longer than I was required to.
Yeah, no, you're touching on very critical aspect, especially with business retention, because with all these global issues currently taking place, we've got minimal investment and investors coming through. Now we have to ensure that let's work with what we have and see how we can expand from what we have. So no, you still have some time. You can proceed.
Thank you. Okay. And I think just in relation to that, I wanted to mention some kind of initiatives that are taking place in the Western Cape around that. So the provincial government has been involved in Operation Vulindlela at a national level, which sits under the presidency. But the specific aspect of that work I want to pull out is the rapid deployment guidelines, which is around developing model broadband bylaws that municipalities can pretty much adopt to accelerate the process of upgrading their broadband capacity in their region. And obviously with the massive increase in working from home under COVID, we've seen those broadband upgrades taking place across the province, and I'm sure across the country, which opens up even more economic opportunity for municipalities where certain types of business perhaps weren't considered viable, or where people living there wouldn't be able to consider starting their own business, and now suddenly they can because of these opportunities. So the idea with these bylaws is really just to help municipalities kind of streamline what they're doing and give operators certainty around the timelines involved. So it gives them the confidence to go into areas that perhaps they previously considered too difficult or not economically viable. Another aspect to that is the power side of things, and just promoting energy resilience for municipalities, and obviously that's a key focus for our provincial government as well. So yeah, I think I'd just like to end off by really encouraging municipalities to see investors as partners and also as true enablers, and I guess to make use of partners like your investment promotion agency to remain kind of as in touch with what it is that investors need, what it is they're looking for, but also what difficulties they're encountering, in order to really understand where in a kind of resource constrained environment you can best focus your energy and attention for maximum results.
Thank you so much, Emma, for those thoughts. Truly appreciated. Let's now look at some of the questions that have come through from Eimear. As I did indicate, Mrs. Sikhumbuzo, you've come in there. There's quite a few. Let me just go through them. And also I've seen some from Terence as well. Let me first start on the chat. Emma is posing a question on, firstly, elaborate on ease of doing business program that was presented, and how do you structure incentives, and also just elaborate on the building plans approval, why is so successful, what has enabled that, and also what makes KwaDukuza so favorable for manufacturing. Those are the 4 first questions. that you can just look at, Mr. Hlongwane, and also we'll then follow up with Mr. Terence Arense, as well as asking about some effective LED strategies that must be looked at. But let us start with these 4 from Eimear, and then we'll move on to Terence. And also, thank you, Njabulo Kulu. I've noted some of the comments that you've also put through, and then we'll go further from there. Mr. Hlongwane?
Yes, thanks a lot. Maybe just to deal with questions. Our program around ease of doing business, I think the focus for us emanates from the study. The study, what World Bank does, it does a focus benchmarking study which will benchmark cities across the world, even within the country, where we just focus on 3 key components, which is a component around building permits, it's a building plans approval process. Secondly, it's around the ease of getting electricity, how long it takes yourself if you want to establish a new property to get connected in terms of electricity. And the last one is around the issues of commercial dispute and how our court systems work to deal with the business dispute in terms of contracts, it could be business agreement. But on our side, the program emanated from the start. We did that start in 2015. It clearly indicated in terms of benchmarking, because we're benchmarking ourselves as a district, which means for ourselves, Donnee Municipality, against the 8 metros, which the study is usually done every year. We picked that we're doing very well in other areas, and then we begin to focus in the program to say, if the study tells us to say we've got areas of improvement, we then did a focus program, which have been running for the last 4 years. The program, the key driver of that program have been around trying to ensure that we fix our system. Because I'm just saying, even if you don't have investment incentive financial, but the incentive also, that's the key incentive, is your processes. If an investor will know that I can go to KwaDukuza, if a project is classified as a catering project, it can be approved within 3 months in terms of rezoning. That person will choose. Other people, they take about 6 months, 8 months to get this approval. As I'm sure this is making time. So our ease of doing business is focusing more around business processes on our side. And as part of the process, we have been doing a lot of change management. As we are doing this project, we did have a pilot project around migrating some of our processes to the system. And in terms of staff, we then focus both on our own staff and also our architect, the agent, they submit building plans or town planning. Because the key issue that we've identified, our colleagues from TIC will say, when we started a few years ago at Junior Doors, I would get complaint from TIC to say there's a developer saying it's frustrated in terms of the application, in terms of our processes. But what we then did as a municipality, we're interacting with them because we picked that one of the key issues is how they structure their appointment of architects or their professional team who does projects. The person will be paid 100% of his fees immediately have submitted the bidding plan. Either it's approved or not approved. In most cases, those people will then lie to their client. They push, submit to the municipality where there's a referral, they don't attend. So we've been able to then have a process around focusing on that program. But the other element that we've started to deal with is business licensing and informal trading, because we didn't want to focus only on organized business. This is one program around the ease of doing business. But the other key issue for us is the structures that we have set up, which are outside your statutory structures, which means I'm just talking about SPLOMA related, for 2 committees. One is a development assessment committee and a development review committee. Development review committee, when you've got a concept that you want to come through the municipality to implement, you've got all the colleagues that they sit and assess bidding plans or town planning, which means your fire department, your district municipality lab will be represented, or Caesar Water, the water utility, all civil engineering. We present as a concept. They'll immediately in that that meeting give you feedback in terms of what you need to focus on in terms of a number of issues, what they are requirement. So it's sort of a pre-scrutiny process, which is outside the process. But once you do that, and then the project will then go through, As part of our process of the Development Assessment Committee, is that committee that will then, when we put a formal application, they will then sit every fortnight, they sit, then they're able to then provide input and support. But around the ease of doing business, a project that we are going with is around the IT-related project that we are running, where we are migrating our system. One of the things that we are doing is just to put the electoral system. We've assessed our capacities of IT, hence we went to get the funding. But one of the elements is that we will be also equipping our staff with the good gadgets in terms of processes, of our own processes, in terms of laptops. We want our own colleagues to be able, even staff will provide these gadgets, where they will be able to get application immediately, assess it, and the supervisor will be able just to make that process. But also in terms of inspections, during the inspection of our building inspectors, but this is critical for your occupation certificates and related issues. We're also introducing gadgets in terms of the similar process. So in short, it's a project that is going through. It's just what we are doing, but it goes beyond the technology around systems. What we have been doing for the last 3 years, we've got frequently quarterly sessions with professionals, but secondly, with also developers, investor project owners. Also, as a municipality, we have initiated training. One of the issues that we pick is that architects that we work with, they were not aware of the new standards that are coming through the SAPS processes. Standard for building. We find that you then push for green buildings, municipal for the policy. Somebody will not going to be aware of energy efficiency and number of issues. And we find that most of building plans we are referring back on that, but non-compliance. We did training last year, which was funded by us. We did have members of the SAPS review board from DTI. They did a 4 days training for external architects who submit on our system, and also for our internal staff. So we have then began to develop the ongoing relationship with the organized professionals from the province, where we offer what they are not doing, we offer services, but it's critical for us to invest so that we enable our processes. So I've dealt with the 2 issues around the business program and approval process. So also our success in terms of approvals, we've been quick because we are being measured about that. We came with, in terms of our PMS, is one of the key issues that myself, the municipal manager, and all executive directors in WESGRO, in their own personal scorecard, if a department is responsible to provide comments for in terms of civil engineering, the executive director and the director, they will have in their scorecard to say for 14 days to provide comments, or 10 days in some of, depending on the type of application. So we're building in our payroll system. Previously it was only myself. In the last financial, we've expanded now. I've signed also agreements with heads of department in SNL because we want everyone to be part of the system. Around the issue of incentives, our incentives is what do that are twofold. The first incentive is this in-kind one. If your project, we classify it as a Catholic project, you get a lot of support in terms of the one-stop shop of assessing the building plans, approval process, and also being fast-tracked in terms of approval. But also is this kind of hand-holding to go to various government departments and intervene if there's issues. And lastly, also, we then take a lead because we don't have a budget as a municipality, we don't get any sort of grants like metros, but only municipal infrastructure grant. So we've been getting from DTI. DTI have given us close in the last 2 financial years, we've got close to 46 million to support about 2 investment. What we do as part of developers' contribution, that investor will then pay the balance. The municipality will just facilitate, get 50% of that grant. If the project requires 22 million to build, to upgrade the electrical infrastructure, we get the application. DCI will give us 11 million, and then the private investor will then pay 11. And it becomes attractive in terms of our model, of our model. In manufacturing sector, our approach is that we have taken a decision to say we want to retain what we have. Automobile sector, in terms of the province. If you go to the provincial plan, KwaDukuza does not feature there, where we've got the biggest supply of component towards it. And this is why I said when we started the process of this project, we kept away province in our project. We only went to the province because we were having a problem with land, which became a deal breaker on our side. We then asked the Premier to intervene because we were losing. But also you find amongst some of the government officials, they were pushing for Dubetrade Port to say, no, we don't need to go to Transnet, we must focus on that. So manufacturing is deliberate on our side, and we've taken a decision also to say, we'll expand. We're using Hesto as a springboard already with the current contract for Ford. We've got now 2 new component manufacturers that we are giving. One of them are giving site. We're going to establish our cluster outside government process. So it's important also maybe to say, because of the provincial colleagues, to say if we plan, we begin to plan outside metro. People, they've got thinking that everything must happen in the metros or where we've got SEZ. For me, we are competing with 2 SEZ is what those are. We've got Dubetrade Port, and then which is within 15 minutes from our site. So somebody will then tend to go there, but we've been able to give people a better proposition. Our rate rebates, our rate policy is very clear. It's a policy that we have been able to use to stabilize and also to ensure that we give access to local businesses. If you go to KwaZulu-Natal, there's been business forums. In KwaDukuza as a municipality, it's limited. They have been very strong. Hesto is one project where it was stopped when it started. Immediately went to court. Hesto didn't go. We went to court. We put as a municipality. When the contractor went into court, the municipality applied to be as a friend of the court to defend the investment. We got a judgment. Within 2 days, there was a court order. We then use our own courts to ensure that we were able to deliver the project. And we have been having some of the investors that they've been moving outside other areas in the sector. They wanted to come to KwaDukuza because of the level of protection. And even during the July riots, Hesto, there was a special plan to protect it from the municipality because it was only ready to be done, and we kept it. There were over the retail were affected, but we tried to protect that business. But it was targeted by the same business forums that we've got court orders. There was a mobilization. So our resources were put there. So our incentive scheme is more around rebates, and we are giving only manufacturing. It's structured like this. You put an application where we are applying for town planning. If you are putting a town planning process, then we have a right to then submit your application parallel to the process. Because we are avoiding a situation previous when I came here, we have somebody who get town planning approvals and then enjoy a rebates for 8 years. 5 years down the line, is a speculation will sell to somebody but did not benefit. But as part of your application, also you begin to give us commitment in terms of when are you going to start the plan of including local labor, implementing local pact, how are we going to open opportunities. Most of the projects in KwaDukuza, that's why we don't have a problem of the business forums. Developers, if you go to Zimbabwe, I get a report every month. They advertise for subcontracting opportunities. There was a fair process, and we are having those people who have received opportunities that the one who are defending those investments. They will say, I'm a local person too. I went through the normal processes and I've got a chance. So we've been able to use that. So our incentive also assisted us to create a good partnership with private sector to put that focus. It's ongoing. Yesterday we did a registration training session for the portfolio committee. There are new suggestions around the structure itself. But most of the investors, they want to get incentive around energy, electricity, which we are not giving, unfortunately, as a municipality. A big driver for us is issues around that, but we are looking for a different model around energy. Obviously, we do have competition around now, solar, safe generation, but as a municipality, we are looking at a specific regime to support investment and support people in terms of energy infrastructure. So with manufacturing, we are still moving. We've got also a private sector node, which enjoy our incentive, which we've got 2 factories currently in South Pole. When we get to that area, it's called Woodmead. We have given that investor is a big developer of commercial properties because we bought that thing from Standard Bank. We've given them that money as part of the neighborhood grant development, which is a national treasure. So I think I've covered almost everything.
Sawonga, Mr. Hlongwane. Yes, maybe we can also just look and ensure that Terence answers as well questions that he had posed on the chat. We can just look into that. I'll bring you later on as well, because he did ask just other questions in relation to the presentation and the LED in particular. But at this point in time, for you to just grab some water, you've been talking quite a lot. But thank you so much as well for that, because it's very good insights that we need. So thank you, sir. Let me bring in Eimear from WESGRO, just to touch on the relationship between WESGRO and the municipalities there in Western Cape. I know that you do work quite closely, especially the city of Cape Town, in terms of the relationship that you have and some successes that actually arose based on the relationship that you've had to actually enforce with the municipality. I know it's not easy, because municipalities also have their own departments in terms of economic development, but then I do know that you've had quite very good relationships at this point in time. Just to elaborate on that and what has actually made that to be successful, and any successes that actually arose out of that. Eimear?
Thank you, Doctor. Yeah, so I was going to get in trouble with my colleagues if I didn't mention a very key part of WESGRO, so I'm delighted you came back to me with this question, which is our district unit. So to perhaps start, maybe for a change, with the rest of the province outside of the city of Cape Town, we have a dedicated unit that focuses on connecting municipalities in the rest of the Western Cape with WESGRO's official mandate and our activities across the four pillars across which we execute, which are trade, investment, tourism, and also film and media. So that unit plays a really key role, and it was launched in 2019, and since then has done phenomenal work building really strong relationships with the local municipalities, as I say, across the province, and also with the district municipalities, which I think was necessary work, and it's ongoing. So, you know, we're still exploring and achieving successes, and figuring out what is the specific role that we can play for those municipalities. Because bearing in mind that our mandate is promotion, but I guess the fact that we have such a close connection to investors, and also to the installed businesses in their area, that we can put the concerns and the experiences of those businesses on the table with the municipality, and help them understand where some of the challenges they're encountering are, and look at solutions with them. I think in support of that work, one of the things that we'd like to be able to provide more of is specific data around where those investors might kind of fall away in their investor journey, and that's something for us as an IPA to work on generating more of, and just letting the municipalities then have real kind of data and research driven insights that they can take action on, again focusing their constrained resources on where they're going to see most return. At the moment, we do already support them with our research function. So WESGRO has a fantastic research function, and we produce district fact sheets for each of the 5 district municipalities outside of Cape Town, which share information with them around things like what are the top exports coming from your region, the FDI inflows over the previous number of years. And again, these are things that there isn't always capacity or access to the right sources to be able to generate those kind of reports. Yeah, and then similarly, you know, our one of our strengths, I guess, is talking business's language, right? And talking to business in exactly that way, like using their language. So bringing that feedback back to the local municipality, and sometimes almost acting as a facilitator. I think Donnee used that word a few times, facilitating dialogue, whether it be around a specific issue that businesses are encountering or in a broader sense, with a view to creating a more investor-friendly business environment, or business-friendly environment for that installed base. Yeah, so we are busy at the moment working on investment promotion strategy that is province-wide. So it's something that we're working closely. It's not a WESGRO strategy, it's a Western Cape strategy, and it's something that we're doing with the help of DDAT at the Western Cape Provincial Government. The city is also involved, our partners at the City of Cape Town, Atlantis Special Economic Zone, and Saldanha Bay Industrial Development Zone, two really key aspects of our investment within the province. And that strategy will be developed, or will be finalized, I should say. There's already been about a year's work taking place on building that and that's something that WESGRO will be key in kind of rolling out and building awareness of within all of our municipalities. And as I mentioned earlier, that can be an important part in terms of municipalities understanding their unique value proposition, their key offering, and also where that fits into sectors that the priority that is focusing on. So yeah, I hope that addresses some of the collaboration that we're doing.
Very much. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it on that. Let me bring in Donnee right now, but I just want this question will be twofold, because there is also a question by Anonymous. Let me first read that through. It says, how would investment in rural areas be realized within the municipalities? LED policies for communities will be advisable and feasible to have a multi-stake approach that communities and business benefit, also participating in global market as rural areas. It's more talking about how do we bring in or take care of the rural areas. But also on my side, while we're looking into this question as well, Mr. Hlongwane touched on the issue of TIKZN spreading some of the opportunities that some of the municipalities may be receiving, so that it can possibly be spread across the whole province in terms of some of the benefits. Perhaps as you address this particular question, just to also touch upon what Mr. Hlongwane had spoken about, which I'm trusting that it does link into this. Over to you, ma'am.
I think in terms of spreading economic activity, what we have in our structure as TIKZN, we have a district representative within TIKZN in all our units that regularly engages with every municipality, so participates in all the economic development meetings, so that we know what projects are available, what's happening. We also have quarterly roadshows where we, speak around, how we can assist municipalities and also businesses in that area. So that's part of our annual performance plan, where we do roadshows in specific areas where we just showcase what we do from a business retention point of view, also investment promotion, how we package projects, and what we can offer to the municipalities. In terms of just sharing best practices, we are part of what we call a General Managers Forum nationally. WESGRO is also part of that, where it's a forum with the Department of Trade and Industry, and also all the special economic zones, some of the municipalities, some of the investment promotion agencies nationally, where we talk around what are the priorities in terms of Eimear has spoken about an investment promotion strategy for the province. What we're trying to do is to align it at a national level to ensure our service delivery across the board is quite similar, because some of the comments we often get from investors, for example, is to say, but who do we actually talk to, because there's so many agencies, and how do we align? So I think it's about just ensuring at a national level they're on board with whatever the priority projects are within specific areas and districts, and then also aligning it at a provincial, local, municipal level. So of course, the system's not perfect, but I think it's a great initiative in terms of aligning efforts, also through the one-stop shop project that we're running with national government as well. to ensure we spread it across different municipalities. I think it's about the district reps then providing feedback in our structures, and then also sitting on those forums. We're also working with Salga and Kokta at showcasing some of the municipal profiles. Salga recently developed municipal profiles for every municipality in KZN. It's something we've put on our investment map as well, where we're working with them on the content and the projects to see what is it that we can market internationally as well. So to create that alignment. So I think from a project showcasing perspective, there's good efforts. I think from sharing best practices in terms of service delivery, or also creating exposure in different areas. What we usually do is we have a visit from an international delegation. We would not just showcase one area. We try and showcase 3 different areas where that could suit the investment, or where there's a competitive advantage as well. So to also assist with that distribution of economic activity, because as you're aware, I mean the different districts in KwaZulu-Natal vary a lot in terms of financial capacity as well. So I think the district planning model, we're working quite closely also looking at what is Infrastructure South Africa's priorities in terms of funding district deliverables, and then also working with the municipalities in district planning and ensuring that the projects that are in their areas are part of what we call our strategic infrastructure development, that is part of our provincial growth and development strategy as well. Thank you.
Now, before you run away, Donnee, there is also the take that was mentioned by Mr. Hlongwane, where KZN had to facilitate with some of the departments provincially, such as the Office of the Premier, and that quite worked so well for the municipality in ensuring that they can be successful in terms of the opportunity that came through. So just to touch on that as well, the role of TIKZN in so far as ensuring that there is that facilitation between municipalities and some of the provincial departments that municipalities have to also work with. Perhaps just to touch on a particular aspect from the TIKZN perspective.
Thank you very much, Dr. for the question. I think we work very closely with the Office of the Premier. There's a unit within the Office of the Premier called Intergovernmental Relations that looks at alignment of also the national, provincial, local. So usually when there is a visit by an investor, for example, we would alert them. Often, for example, a practical example is in the end of March, we have 40 Danish companies coming to look at joint ventures in water, energy, and infrastructure. And we're hosting a joint event with the Office of the Premier, where we also are allowing the municipalities to showcase. We also, at the end of March, are having our what we call our Kwazulu-Natal Trade and Investment in Durban, right before the investment conference, where we've also integrated it with a project that we're working on for halal products. We have over 300 halal manufacturers in the province. So we've spent a lot of time, showcasing that opportunity as well to our international delegates. We also integrating that with World Halal, for example. But at this exhibition, we have about 150 exhibitors, and we have on our platform also space for Salga and the municipalities to come and showcase some of their projects. And this initiative is also supported then by the Office of the Premier as well. So there's, I think within KwaZulu-Natal, the officials kind of know one another quite well. So from an intergovernmental relations perspective, there's a lot of information flow between the Office of the Premier, also local municipalities as well, and our office, and we try and kind of facilitate the interactions as well. So from a showcasing point of view, that is specifically an event which is endorsed by the Office of the Premier as well, also with incoming delegations. We try and create these platforms. So I hope that answers the question in a very kind of practical way as well.
Very much. Thank you so much, Donnee. I'm now going to bring in Mr. Hlongwane, as I'm trusting you would have noted some of the questions that are there on the chat, especially as said by Terence, as well as now I've seen some from Yvonne. You don't have to answer all of them, sir, as I said, because of time. But also just to everyone, Mr. Mahlaba, who's supposed to be joining us from Microsoft. For some reason, he has a challenge with his laptop, and I was so surprised because it's Microsoft. He's having some technical issues and he's trying to attend to. He said if he can come through before 12, he'll try to do so. If not, he will join us on the next session. If we can just pardon him, he's having a challenge with his laptop this morning. He did join us earlier, and then he then dropped the call because of the laptop challenge. So they just give him that take. So let me just bring you, Mr. Hlongwane, to come through now in terms of the other questions, and then thereafter we will do some closing remarks after you've addressed some of the questions that are there. Said, you don't take all of them, said, because of time, but just see which one are much relevant, especially from Mr. Arendse, who had asked earlier. Thank you.
Yes, for me, what Mr. Arendse asked about the effective LED in its municipal area of the municipality. I think for us as LED people working in space, there have been a misconception of the LED. If you go to a lot of local municipalities, local economic development is a term used for small, micro, survivalist businesses. Even councils that you have been doing in terms of induction, they will tell you about a community-based project. But what we have done on our side is to integrate across the municipality business units. I always say your SCM unit, supply chain management unit, have a role in the economic development in terms of providing, obviously, building the value chains, building local manufacturing, and also your finance and everything. But is where we craft LED. LED should be a municipal-based process. And the Vutela program, I will encourage colleagues even just to go to the website of the Vutela program. It's a methodology that we are trying to institutionalize within the South African terms of practice itself. It focuses on governance. If an investor is assured that the municipality for a good audit outcome, like anybody, if you want to invest, you want to be sure that your money will be on the safer hands. So the issues of good governance and other related, they become critical. But also the plans, LED plans, one of the issues in South Africa, if you go to KwaDukuza, I've been one person who has been defiant to say we can't be measured by a plan that is being used for us to get a good IDP rating. Most of the plan along the municipality is a template which officials from the province that assess LED component. They do it just to take the basis for the LED plan. But my approach is that the plan should be evolving, should be an organic document, should be forecast. And you don't need to have a bigger plan where we are just writing. So I think it's an approach where as LED projectors, we zoom in on sectors and focus and come with clear processes that to deliver on those projects. Secondly, there's a question around you, which asks about mining and also buy-in from the communities that you've got a mining application that is coming through, but there's a reluctant intent of communities. I've always say with mining in terms of its acts, we've got the social labor plan. If you want to operate in any mining, a social labor plan. But what we have not been doing is local municipalities, even at a new or existing mine. In terms of the act, they are saying the social labor plan must be aligned to the IDP, which means in your own IDP, somebody who's a mining company must then identify. So even there's an application within that system, definitely you have your own local economic development process. You have your own IDP process. And in order to bring in the community will want to get few things. How much are we going to get in terms of opportunities, job opportunities, in terms of social investment, in terms of business opportunities? If the company, when they do that application, they also begin to put the social labor plan, the draft one, to say, as part of our process, this will be our plan in terms of the process. And now if you deal with the application, in most cases, it's just an application which address mostly around your environmental related. So my advice is that if you deal with the application that we receive to comment as a municipality, because in terms of legislation, it's only the district that comment. In some of the instances where we've got district and local municipality, the application is not sent even to the local municipality. So it's one of the things that I think we need to enhance around the mining application, just to focus on social labor plans. Social labor plans, even if the business is existing, what they do. For us as a municipality, we have leverage. We don't have a lot of mining in KwaDukuza, but we've got small your sand mining and crushing. We've been partnering with them around LED project where they go to a certain community next to them, want to support a certain cooperative. As a municipality, come with land, connecting, providing electricity for 2 or 4 of such projects that we have done, which is a small company, palito crushers within our area, because we understand what the list is saying. Around the issue of expanding LED to rural areas, what could be done in those areas? It depends. I think for us, in terms of local economic development, we need to understand our space. We can't expect that investors will go to rural areas. But what we need to do is to use what is existing within those areas to build, but also begin to build capacity of that community to participate in a lot of issues. If you've got, for example, we are in the area of industrialization, most of the rural areas have got your arable land for agriculture. What are you supplying? If you've got your sugar cane, are you part of the different your plantation, the process? But in terms of making sure that the rural communities participate, is an issue. How are we working closely with traditional leadership? Because traditional leadership, in the way they allocate land, is critical for economic development. You might have a good, maybe somebody want to open maybe a retail outlet or retail center in their community. You find that the good land have been given to other people who are looking for services. So as part of our processes as municipalities, we work with councillors in our own council in terms of our communities. We should try also to build capacity in their own committees, which means traditional council, to understand especially the importance of keeping certain land for business opportunities and doing a lot of issues. But all of us, I think we are aware in KwaZulu-Natal, we work within Goyama Transport, who does have a little bit of capacity in terms of town planning to provide input. But there's a space for everybody, even on our side, as much as we are urbanizing, but we still have challenges around the township economy. One of the disadvantages in township economies currently is lack of creativity. If you go to currently in each and every township, everybody wants to run a sort of a pub or a lounge or shisanyama or a car wash. There are few people who are diversifying and going to certain sectors, but also our own bylaws. They don't support also the establishment of number of other businesses. You find that in certain requirements, if I want to open a certain business, in terms of the national legislation, I will be required to have approved municipal planning application and a number of other issues. So I think there's a lot of role to play just to ensure that we're able to incorporate people from townships and rural areas in our economy, trying to through the process. We've got what WESGRO for the wall-to-wall sampling scheme since 2017. We've got what we are saying is a LAMS transitional policy. If you come to KwaDukuza, you want to get a business license, we're coming from a rural area. Previously, people do not, we're having a number of illegal bottle store and liquor outlets because people will not want to produce either approved bidding plans, and also on our side as a municipality decline because we don't have a bidding plan, the zoning was incorrect. But when we approved the wall-to-wall scheme, we then came with a policy which we are using and we should give a lot of exemption. If you are coming from that era for next 10 years in those areas, we are accepting application, we are accepting sketches that are done, just show what is there. And then the municipality is exempted in terms of building safety, that you sign and give the municipality sort of an assurance that if anything happens, we are not going to come back to the municipality. But there's a process, a lot of applications, and we've done a lot of applications as an enabling environment. But those people that we cater for are those businesses that were already existing before the policy. But in terms of new businesses, that's why we're beginning to charge them half price to submit. We're saying get an architect, somebody who's not registered, just to do certain sketches, but we're not demanding because we're bringing awareness of the compliance issues to enable them. So in short, I'm just saying there's a lot of issues that we have to look beyond just LED. It's around compliance. Some of the businesses, you can't even go in there because if you go to rural areas, even investors come in, they want to get an assurance, firstly, around the ownership of land. If I'm putting my money, I must be sure that there's nobody who will come in 2 years down the line to say that land was allocated to me by a tribal council while we are building there. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. Thanks a lot, Bob.
For me to get this good insight, it's not only from the theory aspect that I've been mentioning, but the practical aspect of it, which is so important for municipalities because there is a lot of challenges. Municipalities For those who are aware, there's currently a national conference by a national SALGA that is taking place in Cape Town this week. And one of the main key outcomes of that, as we all know, that our municipalities are not sustainable because of the financial situation that they find themselves. So we need to have some injections that coming into municipalities for residents to be able to pay. So it means that we need to create this a conducive working environment and conducive business environment so that we can be able to have our sustainable municipalities and they can be able to provide the services for all the citizens. So local economic development becomes one of the critical areas that we need to ensure that we address within our country. And Mr. Hlongwane is one of the experts in the country insofar as LED is concerned, as he did share earlier about his experience, 10 years within this field in senior position. So, sir, we truly appreciate your time that you have taken for this session as well as the preparation that you had to undertake for ourselves this morning. So thank you so much, sir. But let me just give closing remarks to Donnee as well as Eimear and also to yourself, Mr. Hlongwane. Just also while you're doing those closing remarks, just touch on some of advice that you might have for municipalities insofar as strategies for LED is concerned. I'll start yourself, Ms. Donnee, and then Eimear, you'll come in, and then lastly, Mr. Hlongwane. Donnee?
Thank you for the opportunity to participate. It's been really interesting. Also, just sharing information and also learning from other experience. I think from our side, just on the practical side, I think just the way we deal with the investors in our area, just encouraging that dialogue, I think is very important, because even sometimes if you don't know the answer, but if you say, you'll find out and you work at helping the investor, just being practical on things like, finding them a downstreaming company for something, assisting with, speaking to the right people or just facilitating contact. So I think, really having contact with the businesses in your area and the non-governmental organizations and with the support structures that are there, I think that's crucial for me. I saw the question on how important is red tape. It's very important. I think, if a company has come so far to invest, after having given all the requirements, and Eimear spoke around timeframes for that, I think how we respond is crucial in attracting them. And also, companies are usually heavily invested, so they're not just going to move if they've been here for a while, but they will. I mean, we're competing. I mean, just to give an example, I think there's something like 242 investment promotion agencies around the world. So Eimear spoke around the fact that FDI around the world has got smaller. So if you're looking at those destinations that are actively being marketed, we can't be complacent. We've got to improve how we also work with companies to ensure that we keep them and that they expand. And they usually expand in the areas where, they feel they are being supported. We've seen practical examples of where there's been a relocation actually from other countries into our region, which is also some of our success stories, because I think it's important to talk around the success stories and the positive things, because we all know the issues, but where they've seen there's a competitive advantage for them in terms of setting up in, either a special economic zone, or where they felt like, the reaction in terms of providing electricity, for example, as a practical thing, help them actually put their headquarters in our region. It was a recent investment from a Finnish company into our region, where they were actively supported in terms of their electricity connection. So I think being very practical around these things is crucial. And then I think also just tapping into whatever the funding mechanisms that are there, and the support programs. There's a lot out there as well, I think, in terms of best practice. So really actively participating in those forums, I think, are very important. I would say from a real estate point of view, it's really important to know what is the land that is available in your area. And if there is a site, jointly marketing that to the provincial structures, also the national structures, and just continuously alerting about what are the projects in your area, because that's really crucial about getting the information out there, and getting it onto the marketing platforms to generate international interest as well, and generate interest in your region. So that's my 2 cents on it. Thank you very much.
Now, siyabonga Donnee, coming in at the last moment for the CEO, and you did such a wonderful job. Siyabonga kakhulu, Donnee. Over to you, Emma, your last closing remarks.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I would just leave the audience with some areas of encouragement. So I would really encourage you to get to know your local businesses better. I think there's sometimes a bit of a reluctance or a hesitation between public and private sector, and we can point to examples both here but also overseas, where the closer public and private is, and the more there's a sense of collaboration and common purpose, and the better results we can get. So get to know your local businesses and think about how customer-centric you can be in terms of the processes that you want them to go through. Ultimately, it's going to result in an expanded ratepayer base, right? If you're getting them to engage with the municipality, to grow their businesses, to expand and encourage more economic growth throughout your region. And in that, I think we need to be careful about who we compare ourselves to, right? And that speaks to the choice that investors have in terms of investment destinations. So, don't compare yourself to the municipality next door and say, we're turning these things around quicker than them. You've got to compare yourself to perhaps regions in a whole other part of the world, and that might be an option for the investors. But then with your local businesses, really recognize the opportunity that exists there, knowing that they are the ones most likely to expand, and also that they can be your biggest advocates, right? I think we mustn't underestimate the power of businesses telling businesses about how great it is to be where they are. And so we leverage that as WESGRO. We spoke a little bit earlier about collaboration with municipalities. So we collaborated with City of Cape Town very closely and with the Western Cape government to put together an investor confidence campaign. And that was massively successful. It went through 3 different bursts. It was targeted mostly to international investors. There's some phenomenal stats around it, like 12.9 million unique users were reached, 3.3 million video plays, 210,000 clicks to the site, and perhaps most importantly, 1,600 leads for our investment promotion teams. One of the key elements of that campaign was interviews with captains of industry. Business wants to hear from business. What's it really like? We don't want to hear the marketing story from, or at least we do, but as well as the marketing story from WESGRO, or the positioning statement from the specific area. We want to hear from business. We want to talk to them about what's it really like on the ground. And so recognizing that they can be your best advocates, really, I'd encourage municipalities to build those relationships and be as responsive as possible, and have a curiosity around what their experience is. And then, just the final encouragement would be to share information, to share insights. As I mentioned, WESGRO has a role to play in terms of sharing our research and our insights, but also to ensure that our processes are allowing for the building of really nice data sets that we can share with our stakeholders, so that the decisions that they make can come with kind of research driven insights and be as impactful as possible. So finally, I'm going to repeat kind of what I said earlier on, to consider your investors, and by that I mean both new investors but also your existing installed businesses, to really consider them partners and to consider them enablers for the objectives that you have for your municipality.
Siyabonga Emma, siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you very, very much, and Baya Danki for your time as well. We appreciate all that you have done for us. We also look forward to even future engagement that we can have in relation to this subject matter. Siyabonga. Let me now hand over to Mr. Hlongwane, your last statement and closing remarks, sir.
Yes, on my side, maybe just the message to colleagues, especially who are not based in metros or where they don't have SCZ. We've got a lot to do on our side to ensure that we remain competitive. If we don't do that, do the basic stuff. I think the basic issues, we tend to talk about back to basics. Immediately after the elections, everybody, because of the election outcome, what the authority have been saying, they've been talking about back to basics. We need to do that, but also listen to the voice of business. In most cases, as officials, we tend not to be champions within our institution during the budget process to say that you should invest your money in the node where there's economy. We tend to sit back, allow political principle to lead. The second issue is to use the existing tools to influence budget. Use your special development framework as a reference point for decision making. Use of capital expenditure framework, which is part of the SDF, to do that. If you do that, you get resources. The other big key issue for me is an issue of business retention. As I think all colleagues have been saying, that work with the existing businesses, try to understand their challenges and be responsive. Our attitude is that we only respond where you hear somebody that is going to close, like Clover. There's a lot of around the example of Clover when it took a decision to relocate from a local municipality. If you read that case study, it was more about the failure of the local municipality to provide other issues. And then the key issue for me is around good governance and stability. Let's focus around good governance. As you do on your private capacity to say, if you want to use your money or invest your money, you choose. You look for certain things, certain indicators to be assured that your money will be saved. Same thing with businesses. They want to know that if I'm putting my money, I'll get the return on business. And then the last one will be around ensuring that we are able to assist our local communities to look for long-term benefit of any development. This is what in our case, we've been saying to people, don't go and stop the disrupt businesses where they are still on construction stage. Construction will last less than 2 years, and let's look for the long benefit outcome in terms of employment. That's what we said with her story. We said, if they employ 80 people, it's fine. But our interest is about 3,000 new jobs that is being created now. And community, they begin to defend. So I think this is a message that in terms of long-term messaging is very important to look on the future than to focus, because in most cases, people, they tend to focus on the short-term output. There will be a lot of issues around construction processes, around tenders, and even around decision-making. We are not looking for the future. And then the last one, which is key for me, from colleagues who work with this with national government and provincial government, I also encourage, I know all of us, we've got economist background, we know the theories that the drivers of the economy will be your metros. But I'm just saying we are here as an intermediary city and small municipality. Let's also try to save this and do a lot for smaller municipalities. Because automatically your metros, they've got advantage. Most all our SCZ, special economic zones, are based on metros. And in most cases also, there's been a competition between your provincial investment authority with the SCZ. SCZ do have their own capacity to market, to package projects, to get investment, because they've got unfair advantage compared to the municipal units. But I'm just saying, let's get also provincial authorities doing a lot in the outer area, so that we also manage the migration to the cities and deal with the other social issues that come with migration to the cities for people who are looking for opportunities. Thank you.
Hlongwane, you have summarized it quite well in terms of your closing as well. But also, let me appreciate all the comments from the participants. I'm just going to close with this one that Yvonne put in earlier. It is so important to encourage private and foreign investor confidence, not only in South Africa, but in our local municipalities. Drawing closer to what Mr. Hlongwane ended off with, as civil society, we all have our parts to play. We all have our parts to play. I believe that is why we are here listening and getting these insights and knowledge on local economic development strategies and all that is involved in. So I do believe that we all want to play a role insofar as improvement in local government is concerned. So to everyone, we are on time today. So thank you to all the speaker and the panelists. that were part of this session, and also do send our appreciation to Mr. Neville Donnee. I know that he wanted to be part of this, but then now something has come up, so we do appreciate his call that he was part of this from the onset. So to everyone, thank you very much. Let's look forward to next week, same time of 10 a.m. to 12. That will be our last session, which will be dealing with unpacking the municipal budget so that we put citizens first as everything that we do in local government. So everyone, appreciate your time as well as the inputs provided. Siyabonga.